Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this webinar on the future of accounts receivable, how you can gain unmatched efficiency with innovation in your accounts receivable process. My name is Sudarshan Ranganath. I'm the Senior Vice President of Product Management at Corcentric. I've been a product management leader for the last 20 years in different companies. I've been with Corcentric for the last 8, and my responsibilities at Corcentric is to define and execute on the overall product roadmap. I'm joined here by my colleague, Julian Nadaud. Julian?
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm Julian Nadaud. I'm the head of innovation at Corcentric, and I've been in the business for more than 20 plus years, mainly in source to pay, AR, business application, and lately in the last 4 to 5 years in pure AI for business applications.
Thank you, Julian. Julian and I will play tag team here as we go through the rest of this presentation. So what we have as an agenda here is first just kind of talk about some of the pain that you all might be facing today in your accounts receivable processes today. Right? And what are some of the innovations, especially the ones that are kind of powered by AI, that can really move the needle in your AR process. And finally, we'll talk about a little bit about Corcentric, what we do and how our solutions could add value to organizations like yours. So first things first, the accounts receivable lifecycle. So we are broadening that to the overall order to cash lifecycle, starting with onboarding of your customers, credit, checking the credit and the entire credit process around that, receiving purchase orders, servicing those orders, invoicing against those orders, receiving payment against your invoices, applying cash, and if you don't receive payments, maybe something is in dispute, so dispute management and collections management, and finally the business intelligence and insights around all of this process, right? So the order to cash process is pretty expansive, and today there's a lot of different friction points along the way, right? The friction points could be because of manual processes or semi-automated processes. It could be because you don't have enough of the right people on the team to do all the jobs that you would need to do. It could be because you're in an industry where there's a lot of supply chain friction, and because of that, things don't kind of happen or happen the right way. It could be, hey, just orders not having the right information, or you might be having a whole plethora of kind of payment terms that you got to manage against, or just a kind of a supply chain setup in industry that just has many other kind of friction points. So all of this has an impact on really how effectively you are able to collect cash on the invoices that you distribute, right? So, and the key determinant of that is the DSO metric, the days sales outstanding, and then I'm sure all of you really track that very aggressively. And there's lots of kind of data that suggests that why companies have different challenges, right? So here's just a kind of snapshot of different kind of metrics that are out there. So 20 to 50% receivables in companies across the world are delinquent across many industry verticals, right? So it could be just over when an invoice is due for payment, or it could be 30 days over, 60 days over, and in many cases, over 90 days when the payment should have come in, right? So that has a very material impact on your working capital state, and then what you can do or not do with the capital you have or don't have. And the second part of this is the more it sits out there as something that is not collected, right? So the collectability on those delinquent kind of receivables goes down over time. So the more time it spends out there that is still in a delinquent status, the less the collectability gets over time. So it is very critical that you pull that the timeline in and collect everything that is due to you. Right? And some of the other things out there is some industry verticals have the average DSO already kind of pretty high out there. So we consistently see DSO in the 50 and 60 days. There are many industries where it goes to kind of even 70, 80 days on average. And the spread between those who might be having a better shot at this could be kind of anywhere from 20 days to 160 or 180 days. So there is a pretty widespread across organizations, and especially in some verticals where the DSO might be all over the board. And because of this, the cash flow and just the working capital situation that it puts you in could be pretty challenging, right? And this dynamic is very different between companies that are smaller in size versus companies that are kind of much bigger, right? So smaller companies typically have a greater share of their kind of revenues tied up in working capital, right? So you see the numbers there just within the S&P 1500, and there's a pretty a 25% difference between those that are small versus those that are large. And now you extrapolate it to the broader market set, then you might see an even broader kind of widening of that gap. And the more you have revenue sitting in working capital, that means you are not earning any return on that capital, right? So if you are kind of return on invested capital is 15% or 20%, you are not getting any of that if this working capital is just stuck out there and not earning you anything at all. So these are very real problems, and the numbers speak for themselves. And I'm sure everybody is thinking about it and thinking about different ways we could solve it. So one of the things that the kind of the macroeconomic conditions have made is not anything easy at all, right? So we all hear about these in newspapers every day, right? The slowing global economies. Most of the Western economies are growing very slowly, if at all. Only large economy that is kind of growing meaningfully is India. Most others are pretty flat. The stubborn inflation pretty much across the board has forced central banks to have high interest rates. And what does high interest rate means? That means cash, everybody is going to hang on to their cash even longer, right? So everybody, you as an organization and your customers as their organizations, try to make the most out of the cash that they have, right? So, and on top of it, it's a very tight credit situation. So because of the high interest rates, we also, that means that organizations want to use less, but also have access to much lesser. So there's a whole spate of kind of banking issues that happened last year that kind of had a kind of trickle effect into the market, where there's a lot of belt tightening from lenders to organizations around just how they lend money for working capital otherwise. So all of this just means that there is just a great set of things kind of happening in the macro world that affect even more your day-to-day and how important it is for you to bring that money in even faster. So, so that just means that innovation is critical, right? So both to be efficient with the people you have, right? So you're not getting any more money, at least this year, to expand teams, right? It is very, very difficult to get investments around getting more, but you have to do more. So how do you be efficient and effective? And innovation is the key, whether it is to streamline your processes, it is to automate tasks, whether it is to drive better prioritization on saying, hey, what should I be working on? Improve decisioning around different things, right? How do I improve forecasting from all of this and be ready for more things than less? And then how do I kind of detect fraud? Lots of other things, and the list goes on and on. So innovation, again, is super critical for AR teams around the world to be more effective at what they do. So here, I'm going to hand it off to Julian to just talk about some of the kind of vectors on which there's some meaningful progress we can make and very effectively. Julian?
Thank you, Seth. So today we're going to focus a little bit on AI. So why AI? Because there is a a lot of things going on in AI. I mean, everybody knows what's going on. And AI is a huge driver for innovation. What it means is you have to think of new possibilities thanks to this AI, and of things that are possible today that were very difficult to do before, okay? And we're going to talk about 3 different types of AI. So I'm just going to explain a little bit from the standard, what we call the predictive analytics. So predictive analytics is typically the AI that has been here for a while. Actually, it has been many years that we are able to crunch data using what we call machine learning. And that's really taking what we call structured data. So all the data that you have in your database, for example, and being able to analyze these data, find patterns, and being able to predict things. And you have 2, the standard use case of prediction. One is what we call the time series. So you're using the time, actually historical data in time, to be able to predict what's going to happen in the future. Another one, for example, is what we call classification, based on the classification that has been done before. When I see new data, I can classify things based on the data I have. Okay, so predictive analytics has been there for a while, but it's still a lot of things that is very useful for the AR, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. In the last 3 years, we have seen another type of AI, and I call that understand documents. So first, in every single company, most of the information that you have in the company is what we call unstructured data, which is typically document, website, and it's kind of 95% of the data you have in your company. And up to now, all this data is very difficult to process. Usually it requires human interaction to read a contract, to read a PO, to generate an invoice, etc. So all of that has been, up to now, a lot of friction in terms of human interaction and work. And recently, you have seen a lot of AI making a lot of progress in what we call the vision. So everything you see, from analyzing an image and being able to recognize what is in the image. You have seen like face recognition, a self-driving car, these kind of things. And at the same time, we have seen a lot of advanced AI in what we call the language. So what we call language model. And that's the model that have been trained on the language, English, French, Spanish, whatever. And in the last 3 years, we have seen a combination of these two to generate what we called, it's a new kind of AI that combines the vision and the language. And by using this new model, we can read any document. And whatever it's an unstructured document like a contract, but it's also able to read what we call semi-structured documents, like a PO, an invoice, a remittance, a statement, etc. And we're going to talk about that. And lately, everybody has heard about ChatGPT. This is what we call generative AI. So the big difference between the generative AI and the model before, it used kind of the same technology, but it's built to generate content. So the revolution is first that this is what we call large model. So it has been trained on a huge amount of data, which is possible because of the technology, the hardware being able to do that. But it has been used to generate data, whether it's a text, image, sound, even video, right? So we call that generative AI because it kind of understands language, image, everything like the model before, but it can be used to generate content. And we'll see that it can be useful in many, many use cases. So the way this technology today impact the AR, so on the predictive analytics, the best use case is really to make the right call at the right time. So basically, we try to predict our what-if scenario, and we kind of predict what's going to happen to be able to say, okay, let's focus on this, let's do that, etc. So by being able to anticipate instead of looking after the fact, we are able to be way more efficient in the decision we made. And also because of that, we can enable better cash flow prediction and investment opportunities, meaning that based on the data we have, we can analyze all of these data and really understand, where the money is actually in the process. The smart data extraction is an application of mainly the second AI I presented before. And so by reading any document and extracting data from these documents, it's really useful to streamline operation and reduce costs, meaning that you can process data like reading document in terms of seconds instead of having to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 days. And also at low cost as well. I mean, you can read a contract, you can read a PO in terms of cents instead of having people spending time doing the same job. And the natural language, we're going to talk a little bit about that. It can also be used to help user accessing data and make better decisions. So by being able to do what we call a conversational user interface, for example, or understand the language, being able to interact with people using language, we can really make the user life way easier, but also being able to access data, which is very difficult to access using a business application. So if I go a little bit deeper in the predictive analytic, the predictive analytic actually it's looking at historical data. And basically by looking at patterns, it can find what's going on. If this and that, then usually we have this seasonality. It can manage the trend actually going up, going down, etc. It can do correlation between different data, okay? And by being able to apply that to the data that you have, some application in AR, for example, is being able to predict actually when an invoice is going to get paid, for example. So that's pretty interesting, because if you can detect that the invoice will be late before it's actually late, you can anticipate and you can start working with your customer to make sure that you will anticipate the payments, and basically something that may get paid late will be paid at the right time if you anticipate that before, okay? But also you can predict when an invoice is going to go into the dispute, for example, for many reasons. So you can look at the prediction, and you can focus actually the team, like the collection team, to focus on this invoice or to make sure that potential disputes are managed before it becomes an issue with the customer, okay? And the same for invoice or customer go to collection, etc. But also when you have a member of the team to be able to work with the customer, you can assign the right person to the right customer, and you get a more effective team, okay? Another thing as well is the best day of the week. Typically, for example, the payment, you can detect that the payment is done always at this time, for example, or that this person is better at this time, I mean, to reach out at this time, etc. So you can be more efficient by predicting that for this customer, it's better to wait this date or to reach out this day, etc. etc. So you can see that the predictive analytics is just a few examples. Has a lot of value in terms of being way more effective in anticipating and managing dispute and collection, managing priorities, and also you can use that to predict the impact of the DSO on the cash flow by just looking at all the data that you have. And you can even use the prediction to predict the impact of the future cash flow of the future prediction. So you can really say, okay, I'm going to focus on this customer because I know that this customer has more impact than another one, for example. So another application that we have developed quite a lot at Corcentric, and the first, what we have learned at Corcentric is that from your customer or your supplier, you can receive a lot of documents, specifically by email, for example. A lot of documents are received by email. And it's always difficult for someone to receive all these documents from the customer and understand, is that a PO? Is that like a payment information? Is that a dispute? Or is that just a letter or any document, a contract? And so we have developed an AI, for example, that can receive this document, analyze all of the documents, and being able to say in this PDF, for example, I have a PO on page 2, I have a letter on page 1, blah, 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 remittance, etc. And so we can create a group of formatted documents that are ready to be processed by the proper team and the proper employee in the company. And that brings a lot of value, meaning that you route the right documents that are pre-formatted, ready to be processed to the proper process or people. And for some documents, we are able to route that into an automation process that will, in complete autonomy, for example, process the document. Okay, so again, that can be a PO, that can be an invoice, a remittance, a statement, this kind of document. And the way it works, so the type of AI that we can use is using the model I talked about, the vision and NLP model, to be able to read the document like a human and being able to identify all the information on the documents. And in some documents, you have the header and the line items of the documents. On the PO, for example, you have to identify the the customer and the company. It's I mean the destination of the company, etc. So what we do is we extract the data and we match the data with your master data. So the customer database, the company database, etc. And then you can use a bunch of other AI to detect anomaly, verify the data. You can even use the generative AI to review information or to do things that will go to a manual review if you have issue on a document you receive. And the nice part is, let's say that from this document, you are not able to be sure about extracting this data or validating this data. You can have either the generative AI or the manual review, and the system after the review will be able to learn. So the next time you receive a document from the same customer, the system will automatically process the document because it learned from a previous document which looks the same. And at the end, what we do, we convert a scanned document typically into an electronic document. And having an electronic document is very useful in terms of streamlining the process, getting a lot of information, and being able to go fast in terms of satisfying your customer, but also getting the payment back from your invoice, for example. Another use case that we have at Corcentric is we use this AI, like the language model, to be able to interact with our users using an assistant. So instead of using a web application like we have, you can communicate with your application using your assistant. That can be on your phone, for example. We integrate, for example, with Microsoft Teams. So you can talk to your application, ask questions, get answer, and for a lot of use case, it's pretty useful. So you can query status for document, but you can also access what we call a knowledge base, like FAQ or reading documents. So you can create actually a lot of, you can add a lot of information in your assistant on top of the data that you have in your system, to be able to give the knowledge back to the user by asking questions. And that's very useful. So it communicates in natural language. It's also proactive, meaning that if there is something you have to do, you're going to receive a notification to do something. So you can automate action and you can increase the collaboration. And all of that streamline and speed up the time of the process. So again, time is money in terms of accounts receivable. And the faster you go in terms of managing your collection, collaborating with your customer, or getting information about what's going on in your system, the faster you're going to collect money and increase your cash flow. So Seth, head back to you to talk a little bit about Corcentric and what we do.
Thank you, Julian. So just a little bit about Corcentric. So we have been in business for over 25 years, since 1996. We have offices in North America, in the UK, and in Western Europe. We have over 2,500 customers. We service both on the revenue management side, what touches order to cash, as well as the spend management side, so the source to pay cycle. So we are in both sides of a transaction for an enterprise. Across all of our customers, we have almost 2 million entities that we touch, either sellers or buyers. So there's lots and lots of different use cases we see. And talking about what we do specifically in the order to cash side. So our portfolio of solutions goes across everything from credit management to invoice distribution, through to getting inbound payments, and if things go into disputes, dispute management, collection management. We also do trade financing. We sit between you and your customers, and we normalize all that interface, so we actually can pay you on time, every time, without deduction, regardless of customers and their kind of payment terms. And then we take on all that payment risk. So it's one payment, so your cash application is simple, right? And we have a whole host of not only the software services, but also the trade financing, and then analytics to go along with it. So the unique thing we do that is very different than most other solutions out there in the market is Corcentric is perhaps the only one that brings all three pieces of the puzzle, right? So the software to enable a vastly better set of capabilities, the people process, so we offer the managed services and the advisory services that go along with it, but also the capital solution, so the willingness and the ability to get in the middle of the payment flow and pay you, the seller, before we collect from the buyer, so you can sell more. And then we would insulate all of that noise that happens either from credit availability or from collections or dispute action. All of those things is really on Corcentric. So what we are essentially doing is guaranteeing business outcomes for you. So whether it is about like getting paid on time, so we would guarantee DSO, which means that is accelerating from where you are from a DSO perspective today. That would unlock working capital very meaningfully. We would stand behind, once we say this buyer is good from a credit perspective, we would stand behind the credit worthiness, and we would take the uncollectibles risk. So we would absorb all bad debt, and it's a non-recourse setup. So again, there is no other solution that would bring all these three things together to the market, and we think that we are very unique and offering you the greatest set of levers to counter any kind of short, medium, long-term kind of liquidity challenges, or it is about any kind of tactical issues or strategic issues. So it gives you the greatest set of kind of capabilities to kind of be at a vastly better place, and bringing in all of the innovation that we talked about, right? So things that would vastly improve decisioning, things that would vastly improve efficiency, things that would vastly improve your ability to query the data and make sense out of it, and have almost a digital assistant as you go through your day. So a number of different things. We would be happy to talk more about it. Here is all the different ways you can kind of reach us, and happy to talk more about your specific situations and how Corcentric may be of help to you. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you all.